Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Pastor. So enthusiastic, isn't it? I'm picking up, and I'm going to conclude that lesson I started last week on vital connections, the second part called connecting with those we love. Last week we got through number 1, and we'll try to get through number 2 and number 3 tonight. The reality is we all like to be connected with those we love. So how is it that we get disconnected? How does it that a relationship that looks so good goes so bad? And then how do we really reconnect? That's the real reason behind this lesson. How do we reconnect with the people we love? And we started last week using as our case study the very first couple, Adam and Eve. And they had a perfect recipe for romance in that Garden of Eden. They didn't have all the problems that we have in relationships. And yet they still managed to screw it all up by allowing 3 things that caused them to disconnect. And last week I talked about the first of them. I'm just going to hit this very quickly so I can move on. The number 1 thing that causes us to disconnect is what? Fear. Fear causes us to disconnect. And when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, that's called sin. When you disobey God, it's called sin. And so what happened when they disobeyed God is fear entered into their relationship. And what they immediately started doing was blaming each other. They started struggling for control. They started and they started hiding the feelings from one another. And we see, and the things that we saw them do, we do it today in our relationships today. And so pay attention because we do it, the same thing. And the 3 things we talked about last week is that when we're afraid of admitting our faults, we become defensive. We put up these walls. And what we started doing is we excuse ourselves and we accuse other people. And this is a good game we're good at. Excusing and accusing. Because, I just had a problem. But there's no good reason for what you did. Excuse our behavior, but accuse the other people. And you saw it last week in the lesson we looked at. Old Adam was blaming 2 people. He blamed God and Eve. After he had sinned, and God came looking for him. He said, "You gave that woman to me." Blaming God. You gave that woman to me, and she gave me the fruit, so I ate it. In other words, I just had to. I'm surprised he didn't say the devil made me do it. Oh no, that was her excuse, wasn't it? And he excused himself and accused his wife. And then Eve blames someone too. She blamed snake tricked me. And so we excuse ourselves and we accuse other people. Why? Because we just hate to admit our own mistakes. And when we're afraid to admit our mistakes and our faults, we become defensive. The second thing is when we're afraid to expose our feelings, we become distant. We become distant. What happened to old Adam? As soon as he finished before the excuse and accusing, he discovered after he sinned that he was naked and he ran off in the air. And so he says, and so God comes along and says, "Adam, where are you?" And he says, "I'm over here." He says, "What are you doing over there?" He says, "I was afraid because I was naked and I hid." And God said, "Who told you was naked?" He never knew it. He didn't even know he was naked before that. In other words, he ran from the scene and hid. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. We hide from ourselves and we also hide from other people. And we become distant, as if running away from the problem ever solves anything. And you know what? I know I've done it more times than you can shake a stick at. I just don't like it. If I said, run from the problem. I bet you I ain't the only one in this room who ran from the problem before. Am I? Amen. But but this is the thing, the more you become distant, the greater the disconnection becomes in a relationship that you're trying to be, that you, someone you love. And then that third thing that we talked about was when we fear losing our freedom, we become demanding. That's sort of a strange one, isn't it? But it's a true one. Fear and insecurity demands that we try to control the situation. Whenever you see someone trying to control everything, that's an insecure person. That's an insecure person. And so the more insecure I come, the more controlling I become. You know the opposite is true? The more secure you are, the less you need to control. But if I'm insecure and fearful, then I'm going to try to grab control because I want to be in control of everything. I don't know what's going to happen, and if I'm afraid of losing my freedom, I got to always have my way, and I always got to get in the last word. And you know how this really is played? And then I begin to demand my rights. And when you see somebody start demanding their rights, that's an insecure person. The three things that happen when you fear. Right here. So how do you reconnect? What is the key to reconnect? Honesty. Honesty is the first key to reconnecting. Fear makes us dishonest. We hide our feelings, we hide our faults, we hide our fears, and that kind of dishonesty really destroys relationship. 1 John 1:7 says, if we live in the light as God is in the light, we can share fellowship with each other. Fellowship means a relationship of connecting. Fellowship means living openly, living honestly, living authentically, and living truthful with those we love. Now, let me just say this right here. This connecting is with those we love. This ain't just any old connection. I'm talking about connecting with those we love. Those that we're in relationship with as spouses, those that we're in relationship as close friends, those we're in relationship with as parents, and children, those close. This is about the close relationships. Okay, this ain't talking about just any relationship. I want to make sure that you understand that. And so, after all, great relationships are built on trust, and there's no trust without the truth. So it starts with being honest. You got to be honest about your fears, and that's scary. You got to be honest about your faults, and you got to be honest about your feelings. But fear is the first thing we do when we disconnect. So you're caught up from last week. Let's look at number 2. What's the second thing that causes us? Pride. And we ain't talking about that kind of pride we have during Pride Month. That's a different kind of pride. We're talking about that destructive pride. Pride causes us to disconnect with those we love. Whenever you let selfish pride rear its ugly head in a relationship, you can see the disconnect start taking place. I mean, it's just like clockwork. Whenever egos collide, sparks fly. Amen? And that's why both people in a relationship, no matter what kind of relationship, ought to remember pride only leads to argument. Proverbs 13:10. And pride does a few things. Number one, and I have these on your thing. You can just jot them down. You don't have to write them too. Number one, pride keeps you from hearing each other. Pride keeps you from hearing each other. When you're prideful, you think you know it all. I want to hear what you're saying. And then you start cutting them off in the middle of the sentence. Yeah, I can tell you what you're saying. I can tell you what you think. You know, that always gets me. Somebody, I know what you're thinking. You don't even know what you're thinking half of the time. How you know what I'm thinking? You know, I tell what you're feeling. And people then begin to try, when pride raises ugly head, you don't hear the other person, so you tell them how they ought to feel. You tell them, you shouldn't feel that way. You ought to feel this way. You ought to feel the way I'm feeling. You shouldn't think that way. We think they should think the way we think. God, there's so many fights that go on in families because of this one thing. Not hearing each other. Because you got this big head pride that rose up, and you think it keeps you from hearing each other. You know it all. You presume, and so you get all your exercise and jump into conclusions. Amen? If we ran as many miles as we jumped to the conclusion, we'd all be healthy. And so I was in a conversation this very week where both of us were doing this. Now hopefully we got past it, okay? I think we did. But pride makes us unteachable. And when you feel with pride, and you see it all the time in political campaigns, don't confuse me with facts. Facts don't mean anything. My mind is made up. There's nothing you can say that's going to change it. That's pride. So pride keeps us from hearing each other. Another thing pride does is it keeps us from seeing our own faults. Pride keeps us from seeing our own faults. You've heard it said that love is blind. That's a lie. Love isn't blind, but pride is. Amen? And what it blinds me to my own faults. It blinds me to the fact that sometimes I'm the problem. Amen? Sometimes I'm part of it, sometimes I'm the whole problem. Jesus once said to some people, before you go worried about the speck of sawdust in the neighbor's eye, get that telephone pole out your own eye. That's a classic example of pride blinding you to your own faults right there. Another thing that pride does, pride causes us to refuse to reconcile when there's a conflict. It causes us to refuse to reconcile. You know, and this is how I'm not making the first move. Why should I make the first move? They got to make it. You know, sometimes in that same house, you're in different rooms, different bedrooms, different boardrooms. You know, sometimes in the church house, you're in different church rooms. I'm going to wait till you call me. If you want to talk to me, you come and talk to me. Pride causes us to wait for the other person to take the initiative. And it's just our own stubbornness that demands that the other person makes the first step. If everybody feels that way, guess what happens? And we see it in our society. Then nobody makes the first step, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. It's all pride. It's nothing but ego. Nothing but ego. I'll tell you something that's pride. Pride causes us to play word games instead of admitting we're wrong. It causes us to play word games. You know, we play these little psychological games. You know, yeah, you're right. That's done. I shouldn't have done it. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Instead of saying something like that, we just lock in and stay loose. Rather than admit when we're wrong, we play all these little games with one another. We manipulate one another with our words. We shade the facts so that if we're wrong, it don't look as bad, or we shade it to where we make them think try to make them think it's their fault. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? We do it all the time. But you know what the most destructive of all pride does? It causes us to compare and compete with one another. That's the most destructive pride of all. That one that causes me to compare and compete with somebody else. They're the twin sisters of pride. And let me tell you something, they destroy relationships rather than build them. And when you look on the surface of it, you know what you find? You go back to the first one. You find insecurity, and you find fear. Pride is usually motivated by insecurity. When you see somebody that has to boast all the time, somebody has to toot their own horn all the time, somebody that brags all the time, can never admit they're wrong, that's somebody who is masking massive insecurities. Amen? When we're afraid and we fear being rejected, we build up this wall of pride and we don't let people get close to us. We hold them at arm's distance because if they see me like I really am, they may not like me, and I don't want that to happen. And so pride makes us build up a wall. We compete and we compare, and then we build up a wall and we find ourselves lacking. And so we pretend we are what we aren't, and we build ourselves up bigger than we are because we think people will accept us, won't accept us for what we really are. And all of that stuff is just an expression of insecurity. Now, if pride causes us to disconnect, what causes us to reconnect with people? It's an H.
Humility.
Humility. You got it. Humility. Obvious, isn't it? 1 Peter 5:5 says, clothe yourself with humility toward one another. If you want to get dressed for a successful relationship, always go out with the overcoat of humility. You know? In Amy and Rhonda's wedding over on the other side of town, we read the scripture, and just about every wedding that passage from 1 Corinthians 13, you always use it in where love is not proud. Love is not proud. That means anytime you're prideful in a relationship, you're not being loved. That's how simple it is. Anytime you're being prideful in a relationship, you are not being loved. Look what Paul says in Philippians 2:3. Don't let selfishness or pride be your guide. Instead, be humble and give more honor to others than yourself. What is humility? I've shared this before, but it's worth going over again. Humility is not putting yourself down. Somehow people think humility means putting yourself down. It's not. You know, saying things like, I'm no good, I'm not worthy, I'm worthless, I don't deserve you, or what kind. That's actually false humility. And it's also a form of pride. Because you see, anytime someone says that to someone they love, they're really trying to beg for some strokes. They're trying to use reverse psychology and get strokes from somebody they love. It's really false humility. Real humility is not thinking less of myself. I think I like me. But real humility says, I don't spend my time thinking about me. I spend more time thinking about you because I love you. That's what humility is. Humility isn't thinking less of myself. It means that I just don't spend a lot of time thinking of myself. I spend the time thinking about you, that person I'm loving. Amen? See, when you focus on their needs, when you focus on their hurts, when you focus on their interests and what they need at that moment, making sure that they're understood when they about to pull their hair out, you know, that's when you are being humble. And that's real humility. And so when you focus on what I need to say to you, when you focus on how can I counter this attack you've given me, when you focus on how am I going to respond to you, that's being prideful. Because you're thinking about what you going to do. And you, and you, and you. Instead of saying, let me see if I can understand what's going on here. Let me see if I understand what Karen is saying. Let me see if I understand why Judy's upset I didn't read her emails. And then outed me in front of other folks. Oh, that was prideful, wasn't it? Let me tell you something. Humility allows us to say the four most difficult words there is. I need your help. Those are the four most difficult words you can say. And I know it's difficult for some of you because some of you are dying to go to hell before you admit you need help. Or humility allows us to say the three most difficult words, and this is worse. I'm sorry. I am sorry. Or even worse, I was wrong. Woo. The humility allows you to say, you know, one thing I love about my daddy, he was a hothead, low stature. But boy, when my mama would counter him and say, you hurt my feelings, and after she had to walk him through it because, you know, he'd forgotten it. The thing I loved about him is he said, honey, I'm sorry. I was wrong. He never had any problem telling her, baby, I'm sorry. I was wrong. And you know what? That went a long way. Mama could let it go then because she knew he had heard her. And he responded. See, some of us dig in. Well, you just took it the wrong way, you know. And when all you should say is just, I'm sorry. You could save yourself a lot of grief in your relationship if you could learn those two phrases. I am sorry, and I was wrong. They seem to be the three most difficult words to say. And then, humility allows me to say the two most difficult words in the human language. English language. Forgive me. If you can't say you're sorry and you can't ask for forgiveness, you're masking a lot of insecurity. And you're full of pride. If you can't say those words, you call it for what it is. Ego, arrogance, pride, conceit. And behind all of it is insecurity. Only secure people will admit I was wrong. Only secure people will say, sorry, forgive me. That takes humility. And if you want to connect with those people you love, you got to learn those phrases I just talked. And not just say them, mean them. Amen? Now, how do you go about that? Well, our model is always who? Jesus. Look at Philippians, 2nd chapter, 5 through 7th verse. Your attitude should be the same as Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not demand his rights as God. Someone say rights.
Rights.
He did not demand his rights as God. Instead of this, of his own free will, he gave up all he had and took on the nature of a servant. Now that's humble. That's humble. You know, and I thought about that this week. Can you imagine Jesus walking around with a sign that says, I'm number one? He'd never do that, would he? Can you imagine Jesus said, you got to look out for number one? Jesus wouldn't say anything like that. Can you imagine Jesus? I demand my rights. Is that how he responded? No. As a matter of fact, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, now he didn't want to go to that cross. I don't care what anybody said about he wanted to go there. He did not want to go to that cross. In that Garden of Gethsemane, they said he was pouring off sweat drops of blood. And he said, Father, now if this cup can pass from me, let it pass. But nonetheless, thy will be done. That was humility. That's humility. Can you imagine Jesus saying, let's forget this. You stick it in the hell to me. I'm going to do what's best for me. No. He wouldn't do it. And let me tell you something. The word rights is something, naming your rights is a good thing when it comes to the Constitution. It's a very bad thing when it comes to relationships. Demanding your rights is a very bad thing when it comes to relationships. You do have rights in a relationship with someone you love, but you need to forget them. And you need to focus on your responsibility and doing what's right instead of demanding your rights. Because, you know, all in my mom's life, she always worried about everybody else. She never demanded her rights in our family. Never. And so, here she is in her late 70s, and now she's faced with cancer, debilitating cancer. And then I see my father take on that role that she's taken up with her. And when you demand your rights, you get selfish. When you are humble, you don't think about your rights. My father said to us, and anybody who would listen, as he was going through that whole 4.5-year ordeal with Mama's illness that we knew about, she was ill before that, she just didn't tell us. You know what he would tell you? My only prayer that I can do for her was she can no longer be this. No demanding his rights. You give up your rights in a relationship so that the other person has what they need. If you are demanding your rights in a relationship, that relationship ain't going very far or very deep. You can demand your rights by the Constitution, but you don't demand all of them in relationships. Because if you focus on rights in a relationship, you're going to be one angry soul a lot of the time. And the argument's going to go like this, because it's bound to come down to you did this, and then you know what you're going to counter with? Yeah, but you did this. That's when you're demanding your rights. Well, you did that. Well, but you did that. That's what happens in relationship when you demand. Does that connect you? Does that draw you closer together? No. Look, when you're in a relationship, whether it's partners, whether it's parents and children, whether it's just close friends, whether it's close church friends, and so forth, you're on the same team. We need to think of it that way. We're on the same team. So why are you fighting each other if you're on the same team? Don't be comparing and competing. Complement one another. Find ways to help that person shine, and you will shine. Isn't that what Jesus says? And so, if you're on the same team, you stop fixing the blame and start fixing whatever the problem is. Amen? Stop fixing the blame and fix the problem. But you can't do that as long as you're worried about your rights. So the first step to humility, which is one of the keys of rebuilding, reconnecting, is admitting when you're prideful. And this is what you need to do. You need to do some discovering. You need to do some examining. You need to do some evaluating your own life. And you need to figure out what kind of situations where pride tends to rear its head in your personality. Because we all have it, and they're different for every one of us. And that's why you need to look at your own life and decide, the places that pride rears its ugly head in my life would be completely different than yours. That's why you have to examine your own life. I think that's what that scripture means. Work out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. Because you need to figure out what your triggers are. Sometimes in the reading room, you talk to us about things that trigger you. That's what we need to do. Because you can only deal with it if you know what it is. And the preacher can't tell me. I can tell you mine, but I ain't going to tell you because you go and tell somebody else. And I'm not trying to unload to my 200 closest friends. Amen? So you identify where those situations that pride if you're in a relationship, just think about it. Look at your relationship and think, when do I tend to start wanting my rights? And you can tell. And the only way you can face it is you look at it. A good verse for evaluation comes from one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 139. Listen to this. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. I wish he had said that. Why can't we just say, let me know my thoughts? Don't try me. But he says, try me and know my thoughts. And see if there be any offensive way. What he means by offensive there is any way that's unpleasing to you. Any way, God, that makes you sad. When you see me do this and it makes you sad, that's what that offensive way means, okay? Don't get all weirded out by that word offensive. It says, so see if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way of everlasting. You know what the way of everlasting is? We've been taught it's eternity. No, the way of everlasting is the way of wholeness that brings peace. It brings peace in your relationship now, and it will take you through eternity. That's the way of everlasting. Because that's God's intent right there. That works, don't it?
Yeah.
I knew it did for her because she immediately started writing. You do an honest evaluation. You say, God, show me those areas where I tend to be prideful. But I know that whenever I'm being prideful, I'm disconnected from those that I love the most. Anybody got a tissue or something? I'm sweating up here. Hey, Treasure, did you turn the... No, you ain't going to be here that long, don't you? It'll make me speed up. Thank you. Isn't that something the newcomer brings to preaching? All you heathens sit on your... Oh, I'm being a little prideful. Fear shows up as pride and insecurity. Destroys your relationship. The moment they pop up, you start disconnecting. Last one. Third one is what? Hurt causes us to disconnect from those we love. Look at Proverbs 18:14. The will to live can get you through sickness. Tune into this one. This is good. The will to live can get you through sickness, but no one can live with a broken spirit. Let me tell you what a broken spirit is. A broken spirit is that emotional damage that takes place through words and attitudes and actions and expressions that we get from those around us. You ever remember that old childhood rhyme? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words cannot hurt me. That's a lie. I want to break the face of the person who come up with that one. I want him to show that sticks and names hurt more than sticks and stones. A broken bone can heal in a matter of weeks. But you know what? A broken spirit, a damaged emotion, a scarred soul. Sometimes people carry that the rest of their life. Some of you in this room, I bet, I'd be willing to bet, some of you in this room are living with broken wounds that were given to you growing up. Ridicule, embarrassment, hateful things that were said to you. Some of you, it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Well, mine wasn't 30 since I'm only 29. But you still remember me today, and they still hurt today. Mm-hmm. It's like an open sore that's never healed. You try to put an emotional band-aid on it, but you try to ignore it, but it still hurts. Words hurt far more, and we remember them, and emotional scars take much longer to heal than any broken bone. And the problem with hurt is that unexpressed hurt, when you've hurt me emotionally, and I've just taken it, and it's gone inside, it becomes resentment. It becomes resentment. And resentment is the number one killer of relationships. Resentment. Hurt is not what destroys relationships. Resentment is what kills a relationship. Hurt is just part of being human. It really is. You are an imperfect person, so is everybody else. And guess what? You're going to hurt some people. Sometimes it's going to be unintentionally. Sometimes it's intentionally. Sometimes people are going to hurt you. Sometimes it's unintentional. Sometimes it's intentional. On purpose. But a hurt doesn't have to destroy a relationship. It doesn't even have to cause you to disconnect along. Remember I told you, Daddy, Mama was disconnected from Daddy when he hurt her. But when she would call him on it, sometimes it was 2 weeks later, but when she called it on him, and he would just say, baby, I'm sorry. You can see that. There was no resentment. The reconnection was being made. But if you hide a hurt, and you let it go on, and you never bring it up, and sometimes we do that thinking we're keeping peace. You ain't keeping no peace. Might as well go out and get yourself a piece, because this is going to come down to that eventually. That's a Medea line, isn't it? Because a hidden hurt turns to resentment, and a hidden hurt only intensifies the pain. It doesn't make it better. Let me tell you something. If you don't believe it, you already know this. When you start thinking about something somebody did to you wrong, you come back to it over and over. By the fifth time, it's a lot worse than it was the first time. How many of you know that's to be true? Boy, what started out was as a little bridge, honey, hey, cut your arm off by the time you get back to it. Hiding it and just not dealing with it intensifies, and a hidden hostility will eventually eat you up. And if you go on with that, you said that person's a pain in your neck, pain in your back, a pain in lower of your anatomy. It's because it really is. It's literally eating you up. It will cause you to throw up, and it will cause you pain, physical pain. So what's the key? What's the key to reconnecting? Huh? Forgiveness. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. Let me tell you, if you don't get anything else out of this lesson tonight, in these 13 minutes I've got, get this. These 13 minutes before we have to leave, get this. There's only one antidote in the entire universe for dealing with hurt. There's only, excuse me, that spaghetti was good the second time. There's only one thing will help you get over hurt, and that is forgiveness. Nothing else can do. No pill, no therapy, no book, no seminar, no tape, no trying to push it out of the way, no trying to deny it, no trying to forget it. None of that's going to heal a hurt. The only thing that's going to heal a hurt is forgiveness. They say that time heals everything. Another lie. Another lie. It does not. Have you ever been sitting in a doctor's office? Did you get well just sitting there before the doctors came in? Okay, then time don't heal everything. Time makes something deeper, makes some hurts deeper and worse. And some folks are dysfunctional today because they never got around to forgiving somebody. Never got around to it. So you need to forgive. Why do you need to forgive? 2 reasons. You already know them. I've told them before. Number 1, Jesus Christ has forgiven you. And you're never going to have to forgive somebody else for anything nearly as much as God has already forgiven you. Amen? Well, that was your cup. I thought someone was done. And the second thing is it's not the most important thing. The first thing was the most important. But this is the most helpful thing for you. And that is this, that it's the only way to get over hurt. Now, I did not say that they deserved it. They probably don't deserve it. I'd be 99% sure they don't deserve it. But the reason you need to forgive them is for your own sake. It eats you up. It eats you up. It's not a matter of deserving. It's not a matter of for your own sake. It's for your own sake. You know, if you hold on to it, you continue to allow that person to hurt you, and they go on with their life. No. Why would you let them just keep hurting you when they ain't even thinking about it? Amen? Colossians 3:13. You must make allowance for each other's faults and forgive the person who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. The Bible says, remember back in 1 Corinthians 13, love keeps no record of wrong. Let me ask you something. Think about this. Don't answer out loud because I don't want you lying. Do you keep record of wrongs? I said, don't answer out loud. Do you keep that little register in your mind of all the things they've done to hurt you, so that when you do something wrong, you can use their wrongs to justify yours? Do you keep a record of wrongs so that you can bring them out as ammunition later on? Anytime, huh? Stockpiling. That's what it is, stockpiling. Munitions dump, that's what it is. Anytime you or I do that, we're not being loving. And all of us, and all we're doing is causing greater disconnect rather than reconnect with those we love. So, let me ask you as we close, who do you need to reconnect with? Who do you need to reconnect with? Who in your life right now you need to reconnect with? You're holding something. You're holding, can you lower that tone a little bit? A little softer. Who's popping up in your mind right now? If you close your eyes right now, who would pop up in your mind because you know who it is? Who is it that you need? When you walk out of here, you need to make a phone call. Stop that pain. You need to stop the pain. Why should I forgive them when they hurt me so bad? Because number one, God's forgiving you, and number two, is because it's the only way you're going to get on with your life. Now, some of it, remember, I ain't talking about with somebody's gone. That you need to forgive them too, but let me be careful with this one. There are some people you don't need to make a phone call to. I'm not talking about everybody. You need to forgive everybody so that nobody is hurting you when they're going about the way. But we're talking about connecting with those we love. Who that you want me to connect with that you love. That's what I'm talking about right here. Now, you need to forgive everybody because that's the only way you'll get past them. But I'm talking about, when I'm talking about going out and calling somebody, I'm talking about somebody in your life you need to connect with right now. So what's holding you back? You take the first step in honesty. You take the first step in humility. You take the first step in love. That's called forgiveness right here. There's no fear in love. Maybe you need to let them know that you're willing to take the first step by doing an act of kindness. If you want to know, if they want to know why you're doing, just let them know, because I love you and I want to be connected with you. I want to reconnect with you. Maybe the situation that popped up in your mind isn't so bad that it's on the verge of break or anything, but our situation can be a little better than it is right now. Do the same thing. Do some little special act of kindness out of the ordinary that you do, just to let that person know, I want our connection to be strong, and I'm willing to do something about it. I'm willing to working. It's a way of saying, I need you. You need me. And I want to connect to you. I want to reconnect with you. Because we're all part of God's body. Let's stand.